So we're going now. So ask that question again.
So we're talking about the refuge. And we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about where we can find safety, where we can find ease and peace and security, and talking about the wrong places we try and find that. We try and find that in money, we try and find that in societal structures, and this whole crisis is making us realize that those things perhaps are not as stable as we thought. And with the insight of anicca, we know that, you know, there is nothing is permanent and everything is in flux. So where is the safety if there is no thing that is free from dissolution? Where do we find the safety? And I suggested, like, is it in the insight of that emptiness, that no thingness, that flow and that process, and just surrender to that insight? Is that the security? Is that the ease?
I will go so far as to say that security is, let us say, a benefit and the fruit of the practice for the beginner. Okay, it's almost like that upon full delight in sodapan, you're awarded a security blanket. Now you feel secure. And then you spend the rest of your practice watching that security blanket get eaten away.
Yeah.
But we need that security. In fact, security is built up in part of the power, the idiopata that comes with safety and security is, let us say, the settling in of satisfaction based upon success. So now that we're successful, now that we've got this thing going and we have the confidence that we can keep this going, now we can settle into a state of security that does have that quality of relaxation.
And it's the clearing the mind, isn't it? Once you know that you can clean the mind, even when you get in, like I was describing last Thursday night, that difficult moment, even in the midst of that, I knew that like the mind would clear itself of these feelings, and that I would come out. And 4 months ago, 5 months ago, it would have felt like despair forever. This is reality, rather than this is something I can clean out.
Okay, yeah, I can handle that.
Yeah.
So this is then that quality that for the beginner or the let us say the adept student, that his reward is that security that comes in along with the fact that he's got it going now. He knows he can do it, and that he's got confidence in basically in the triple gem. That in fact, in some suttas, it is directly associated as how the outside world should be able to tell a sotapan, or that the hallmarks from not from the noble position of the seven knowledges, but from the ordinary worldling's position, and that is twofold. One is the triple gem, and the other one is keeping the precepts. Because once someone is at the level of sotapan, they are actually intentionally keeping the precepts at a much higher level of intention than ordinary people do. Because ordinary people are much more interested in not getting caught than they are in really cleaning up their act. And so, but when seen at an ordinary level, what that will mean to the ordinary mind is, oh, he's keeping the rules very well. No, he's not. He's just being mindful and on his toes. Okay. But they see it as, oh, he's a good rule keeper. One of the distinctions, and by the way, there are a lot of good rule keepers, but inside they're not really all that happy. This is not a full-blown thing for them. They're just out there thinking that, oh, if I keep all the rules of this particular religion, then I will be doing the bidding of the big karma machine in the sky, and he's going to reward me for being a good rule keeper. But there's still no joy in it, to where rule keeping is no longer rule keeping when the mind is clean. It's just that's the way that we do it with a clean mind, and it's no longer bound into the rules. So that's one issue. The other issue is taking the triple gem, because the Sotapan is the one who then sees how valuable it is to live one's life according to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path, that it's really, really gotten ingrained now, so that that becomes the refuge. But we kind of expanded in the sense that we give homage to the Buddha as the one who figured this out. So we take refuge in the Buddha, and in a way, it's not an individual Buddha, but we take refuge in the outcome of the process. A better way of saying it is taking refuge in the Tathagata, or the taking refuge in to be here now, and never mind the name of the dude that's be here now. We're talking about that as a quality that we're naming as taking refuge in the Buddha. So it's kind of the outcome. Then the second refuge is the refuge of the Dhamma, and that's the big one. That's the big deal, because in fact we only have the Buddha as the refuge, as the outcome of actually practicing the Dhamma. But that's the real refuge, that we're really dedicated to the path, the Eightfold Noble Path. We're so dedicated to that because we know that it leads to freedom of suffering, which is what the Buddha actually teaches. And then the third aspect, taking refuge in the Sangha, is this is kind of complicated. But first off, it's complicated because there's many different levels of Sangha. But basically what we're talking about is that maybe we can think of it as the rent in a particular building. That the higher up in the building that you go, the higher the rent. So that when you're at the penthouse, that's the top of that building. Okay, so we can also kind of think of people who are worthy of friendship is also going to be in that way. Here's a clear example of that. When alcoholics go to AA, one of the things they naturally do is stop hanging around the bar and the barflies that they have been hanging around with. Now they begin to hang around a new group of people, which is in fact the ones that are associated with AA. Never mind any other qualities going on. That's one of the things, is we stop associating with the unwholesome and start associating with the wholesome. So this is what it means by taking refuge in the Sangha, in the sense of taking a refuge in a group of people who are of like mind. Now, that's the loosest way of saying it. And in fact, in that loose connection, you can say anybody that opens a shop with a Buddha statue out front and an invitation to come on this particular evening at this time, they call it a Sangha, no matter who shows up or how well established they are. That begins to get the idea of a Sangha, because they're looking for like-minded people. Well, actually, we could go so far as to say in Buddhism, we can say, oh, this Sangha is real Sangha, and that other Sangha is not really good enough yet, but rather just see it as in layers or in levels. One of the levels in that the real Sangha is the ordination of monks and nuns, or bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. That's the Sangha. And that in the original Sangha with the Buddha, they all addressed each other as friend. And this is what gives us the quality of Kalyametta, that we're all really just spiritual friends working together each individually working on his own mind while he works on widening and opening his friendship. And so what we're talking about is learning how to collect a set of friends. And so the question is, well, at what level are we going to collect our friends? A possible way of thinking about that would be the way that someone is going to learn to be very good at playing chess is by playing people who are better than he is. That if, as long as we play people who are not as good as we are, or the same people over and over again, we get stagnant and don't grow. The same thing then is true about the people that we associate with. That if we associate with people who are high quality people and worthy of spending time with, then we're actually up in the game. It's sort of like in marriage, to marry up rather than marry down. Okay, so now we're beginning to look at the Sangha then is that in fact the Sangha of monks actually has two layers. The two layers are the beginner monks, the ones who get into the routines, the duties, the rites, rituals, the performances, the monk's life, the what life, all of that kind of stuff, because most people get trapped into that. And then there is those who practice correctly and become noble. So that group now has a different level of friendship. They're the ones on the inside who know that they know what's on the inside. This is actually the kind of relationship that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa had with his teacher, whom he first he bailed him out in 1932 because he was already one of the big important. In fact, he was like the prime minister of monks, the Sangha Raj, or the Sumdet. And so he helped Bhikkhu Buddhadasa get out of the jam because he knew he was right. Not all the monks in that big conference, but it was Buddhaghosa who drove it into the favor by getting these monks wizened up, pointing out what was in the sutras and that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was correct. Then later, about 5 years later, in 1937, Buddhaghosa shows up in Chaya, and that's when Bhikkhu Buddhadasa formally, after 10 years as a monk, formally takes Buddhaghosa as his achan. And so we now have this lineage of known nobility that stretches back. We actually know others involved with this. So Bhikkhu Buddhadasa wasn't so much that he was wasn't necessarily a renegade monk teaching renegade Dhamma, because that's in fact what they were bringing him up on was Sangha Dasesa, or the breaking of the Dhamma, or breaking of the Sangha, in the sense of causing dissension. That he's teaching things that are non-standard or ordinary. What they came up with is he's teaching the right thing to the wrong people. So, but this lineage of the nobles was such that now we begin to understand that they all knew each other. That there was a huge Sangha of very old monks who were constantly in contact. Some of their names were Achan Panyananda, who was the head of Wat Chulapatan. He may still be alive. The last time I saw him, he was 97, but he was still mobile. But that was 20 years ago. So, and also in the Northeast of Achan Mahaboa, known to be an Arahat and well known. And the Thai, here's the other thing: the Thai people know, but the monks don't advertise it, and it's kind of only everybody knows it and understands it, but it's not a big deal. Nobody's advertising this stuff. Achan Cha also, by the way, Achan Mahaboa was one of Achan Cha's teachers, but Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was also. And so all of these elderly monks then knew each other and knew that they knew the correct Dhamma. This is a Sangha within the Sangha, and that I at one time thought that, okay, it's in Thailand, but then later when I was a monk in the United States, I find, oh no, even though the Laos don't mix so much with the Thais, they do some, and that the Noble Sangha is also within the Lao Sangha. So they have nobles. Cambodians have nobles. I've even seen Sri Lankan, and that's the surprise because normally those chaps are really into Visuddhimagga, but they still produce nobles. I know of at least two of them. One that was in Kuala Lumpur, and another one was in Raleigh, North Carolina. I actually confronted the one in Raleigh, North Carolina, because he asked me to teach the children, so I teach them anatta. And he let me get away with it. And then we had a conversation about it afterwards. And so that's the kind of, you think, if the monk is still living in a magical world himself, then he's going to find it difficult to teach the children anatta, because that destroys their idea of the karma machine and leaves the children open for the wrong view of, now I can get away with it because there's no karma machine that's going to catch me by the throat. So this is why the non-noble parents and monks don't want anatta taught to children. So that's one of the ways of getting the door open, is by raising anatta and that kind of thing. So in that regard, the United States, I know that it's true in England, but I haven't been around England. But I do know that Amaravati is on and so is Chethurst. Both of those are associated with Achan Chah, but neither one of them are close to you. One is in Hemel Hempstead.
Well, Hemel Hempstead's just outside London. I would like. I haven't been to either of them, but I would like to. I know someone who was kind of brought up around that community. Yeah, Achan Sumido, I think is his name.
Yeah, Achan
Yeah,
Sumido. Yes, uh-huh.
he was I think he was this kind of senior monk there for a long time, and he seems like a very. People I know who have met him have said he's, clearly a very awake person.
I've known Sumedo for many years. In fact,
Okay.
when I met him in 1985, it was at Wat Suan Mok.
Ah.
Because he was there with Achan Chah. The two of them had come to see Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, and so naturally they're going to show off their new shiny object too. Me. So, yes, there is nobility out there. That's the whole thing. That not every teacher of the Dhamma is a money-grubbing magic teacher. Just most of them.
Oh dear, it's a harsh assessment. Do you think it's that bad? Do you think it's most people teaching the Dharma fall under that category?
The normal introduction to the Dhamma is through the magical world of the Buddhist religion. That's how the children are introduced to it, and that's how the Westerners are introduced to it. And it takes a while to get over that hurdle to get into the real Dhamma. Most of them didn't stay in Asia long enough to get over that hurdle. And so when they went back to sell their new toys that they got in Asia, they sell the magical version of it. Or let us say that they bought this statue in a trinket shop and they were told it was gold. And so they go around selling it as the gold instead of this. No, this is just a trinket. So, and it got started that way basically from the beginning, because they took it in, tried to put Buddhism into the psychotherapist model of making money off of it. But within the Thai Sangha, there's never, ever any money associated with it. whatever money gets passed back and forth between the lay people and what pocket it belongs to according to temple funds, etc. Uh, the monks are there freely available for teaching the Dhamma and doing the rites, rules, and rituals that the folks are expecting. And it's got nothing to do with money. And so that's Asia-wide, and it's all over anywhere where you find any Asian-like temples throughout the United States and in Europe. It's done that way too. But when you go look online for a retreat, a 10-day retreat or something like that, they're normally going to post fees of sometimes over $2,000. To where if there's retreats happening in any of these Watson temples, they normally don't do it, but they could and have done. And then it's always going to be free for donations that would then be put in the donation box. And the teachers don't care that much about. In fact, the teachers are very proud and prideful that they don't have to take the money. They like giving that money and donating it further on and paying it forward and whatnot like that. So the Dhamma is now looked at in that regard as priceless. This is the refuge. And so we were talking about the Sangha all along, that the noble Sangha always gives the Dhamma freely to anyone who wants it. But they also, when they know each other, form an inner circle of those who know, that you know who knows. And sometimes guys are ready and they have to be told, yes, I know you know. And then that sort of helps them out over that. That sometimes happens with a series of conversations and whatnot. And so getting students noble-minded has been, let us say, quite a joyful experience in the sense of bringing students up to the noble Dhamma so that they know, at least to that point, that beyond a doubt, I can clean the mind out. I can pick myself up, dust myself off, and waddle on down the road. I can do that. I don't have to lay here in my filth, pleading for mercy.
So then, to go back to what we were saying before, that point that you just described there is that level of security at that point. At that point, there is a confidence that goes, I can feel good every day whenever I remember to feel good. And that is a wonderful security. And it changes I feel like it changes like just the meditation practice and just like basking in piti and sukha, like as part of that meditation practice, joyfully opening yourself to the present moment, doing that day in, day out, it changes you. And there is a confidence and a security there. But then, what you said, from there, I mean, is that the refuge? As we were saying before, with the insights, and as we've been speaking about over the last few sessions, that final tetrad for me is really starting to take off, like in terms of like how vibrant it is in my practice. And mostly it's in a very joyful way, like mostly observing that the way I am clinging to a thought or a phenomenon is dukkha, and letting it go produces like this wave of joy through the body. Mostly anicca is experienced as a wave, and the wave is pleasurable. It's pleasurable to observe the fact that that everything is in flux in this mind and in this body, and similarly, like non-self, like presents itself as like this expansive, as this expansion, as a kind of like it feels pleasant to not have a kind of like fixed center point and to experience that. But when I don't know what I'm trying to say, like if you keep going with those insights and, the logical conclusion of all of that flux and all of that lack and all of that kind of lack of abiding self and that emptiness, where then is the refuge at that point? Is it in surrendering to that?
You got into that state through and by the refuge.
Yeah.
That was, in fact, you have gotten to the point of having now that refuge of at least the Buddha and the Dhamma. Okay. And so that's the real deepest part of the refuge. You can't have the refuge of the Sangha until you have the refuge of the Dhamma, not the deeper. And so, in fact, our refuge in whatever Sangha we're in depends upon whatever mind state that we're in. But that there have actually been movies about this. One of them I was thinking of was something like The League of Exceptional Gentlemen, or something in that regard, except that they don't have to have a really strange car in 1910 and strange hats to wear for a movie, but rather we're talking about beginning to have the kind of Western Sangha that I know exists in Thailand. And it is actually based upon the two-level layer, but that most of the Sanghas that have been formed, even in East Sangha now, is still at the lower level of it being a religion and magic and fees and my teacher's better than yours and look at what my teacher teaches and all of that world of competition. To there would be then an inner group or an inner core, which generally I don't know how they would do it, nor that it would be up to me to start it. But there could be code words that have a particular meaning or definition, and other things like this: a wink, a nod, a knowing of a group of accepted people, so that we begin to know each other and have a noble Sangha that's available. This is the idea, which I think actually goes beyond what Achan Po was requesting, which was, let's get the Dhamma out there. But now that we have enough that are taking refuge in the Dhamma, now we actually have need of a Sangha, a real Sangha of nobles. And so this is what Noah is helping to put together with on Discord. And starting up an e-Sangha. I would actually like to be as broad as possible, including connecting with other e-Sanghas or to join.
Yeah, I'm on that Discord and we're trying to figure out a time for a weekly online meeting. But because it's Pacific time, which is 7 hours behind London time, it's my availability. I was only able to offer a few slots that work, whereas so I'm not sure if it'll work for me this round.
Well, we could actually do more than one.
Yes.
If we had, in a sense, if it's on Tuesday, then we could do one that was good for those in Europe and do one that's good for those in the States.
Yeah.
And if things go really crazy, even one for those who are in Australia, Thai, Chinese time zone, because we've got quite a few already.
Yeah.
Got several in Australia and 2 in Chiang Mai area and 2 in China. So that's already about 6 people in this time zone. Where in Europe and the US, it's much many more. So that's the place to have it, so that we can get it in for everybody. But one of the things that we've done recently, today, in fact, was that I called my email list for all of the people that it would be inappropriate, and sent that email list to Noah so that he could do a very large email blast to get people to possibly join that, so that we can get a Sangha going. And so advertising it around for those who, to get everybody to join, because within that group will be then those that get together at a higher, deeper level. To get really into the deeper part of the Dhamma, to where things like Reddit don't quite work, because it's, how to say it, there's too much competition, basically. That people get really competitive. And so they don't listen to each other. They're all showing off what they know, or creating subgroups and packs, whatever like that. So being able to actually know each other, introduce, get together on Discord, will then help that familiarity level to break down. Okay. One thing that happened with the Buddha and Ananda is Ananda had heard this from Sariputta, and he thought it was so surprising that he goes to check it out with the Buddha. And that was that Sariputta had told Ananda that the holy life, half of the holy life, consists of friendships, developing friendships. And the Buddha corrected him and says, oh no, it's not half, it's the whole thing. The whole of the Dhamma is friendship. Now here's how that works at a really ultimate level. At a really ultimate deep level, we are afraid. That's the primary danger. And so we actually wind up being afraid of each other. That's why they're competing. But if we can move that fear aside, then the anxiety that arises out of that fear, that then gets pointed and directed at another person, is what causes competition, which is one of the high fetters that the Buddha talks about. So in fact, this Kalyametta, or this friendship, or this deep Sangha feeling of being part of a group, part of a team that you trust, that actually is what then helps us to then expand that into being friends with the whole world. If you can be friends with a few people that you really trust, then you can become friends with a wider group of people, to the point that you can become friendly with everybody. And that's one of the qualities of the Dhamma, is then your Sangha becomes everywhere. You're taking refuge in everything.
Is that even expanded beyond the human world? It's like an attitude of friendliness to kind of like all arising, all experience.
Which then means that now the security is built in, because we only see friends, we don't see danger. That the reality of the situation, that I was the one who was making my world dangerous. And so we have to do some wise things, and that is, let's develop ourselves a set of friends that we can completely feel safe with, and create an environment that we're completely trustful and safe with. And now we do it. This is, in fact, what we mean by the four requisites: just enough housing, just enough food, just enough clothing, just enough medical attention. And by the way, that medical attention we need revisiting.
Might involve a ventilator or two.
Yeah, if you've got a ventilator, take that to school too. Show that off. Sit there with your mask on and your ventilator and see what they do with you. They may send you home if you do that.
Yeah, I imagine they will. Okay, so going back, I tell me if I'm hearing you right then. So talking about this idea of like where we can find our refuge once we start to accept and see the world as impermanent, as not self, and as empty. It's in cultivating a friendliness to all experience, which we can develop. And that's what the Sangha element of the triple gem sort of gets our foot in the door. If we can be open and honest and at ease with this group of people, we can do it with this group of people, we can do it with this experience, with that experience. And suddenly suddenly everything is a refuge, because everything is experience that we can be friendly towards. And it's our attitude that is the danger.
Yes.
It is our fear. And if we can let go of that fear, then we are in a state of refuge.
Precisely.
But before you said... Before you said something interesting at the beginning of when we started recording, you said when you get to the point where you know that you can clear the mind, and you get to the point where you know you can bring up a sense of satisfaction, you feel a sense of a certain security. And then beyond that, in your practice, you realize that security... You mentioned something about like that security, like...
I said the security blanket rots.
Yes. So tell me how that relates to this.
So this is how it relates, is if you have friendships, you no longer need the security blanket. That the whole purpose of needing the security blanket, of feeling secure in a dangerous world, now the world is no longer dangerous. We completely changed our attitude about it. Okay.
Yeah. It's like it's an extension of anatta, isn't it? Because if you're at that point you're describing about, now I know that I can do this, now I know I can clear the mind, now I know I can feel satisfied, I can feel safe in this world. There's it's a very dualistic perspective, isn't it? It's still like me in a dangerous world. So you're saying that the kind of development of practice beyond that is like a ripening of that insight of anatta through friendliness,
through friendliness. And see, I enjoy that very much. Ajahn Po has actually done me such an enormous favor by putting me in this, because I've gotten great joy, and that I would like the students and others who begin to understand the Noble Dhamma to share it among themselves, to get that feeling that, yeah, this is the right stuff. We can take refuge within each other as a group and let that group grow as we have more and more who have that noble view. That they've got the Dhamma now. That in fact, there is nobility to be had without ever teaching Buddha. That students are beginning to experiment with, how can we teach the Dhamma without dragging all of this 2,500-year history to it? And my answer to that is, you leave my cotton picking 2,500-year history alone. I like it very much. It's really, really good stuff, and it helps the students a lot. And the students will come back and say, yeah, and it's really limiting, because a whole lot of people, they don't want none of your 25-year history. And so we can teach the Dhamma without it. In fact, what makes it so powerful by using all of the history of the Dhamma and all of that is because it's a history of success. It's a history of having it right over and over and over and over again, rather than newly discovered. It's not newly discovered. This is really, really old stuff, and it's really been practiced and handed down through the centuries. And that it feels, even for me, more solid to teach modern psychology through the Dhamma and with the language of the Dhamma, because that helps the student gain confidence in it. And so that's part of the reason why I do. However,
some people are so fixed in a kind of anti-religious attitude that they would find they wouldn't see Yeah, they wouldn't see the Dharma, they would see religion, even though it's,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I've been,
You've
I've walked
seen that
around North
firsthand.
Carolina in those robes. I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
I bet that was an interesting experience.
In oh so many ways. We've got no time to talk about all of that. So, anyway, this is the idea then of taking the refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and having the mind fit for work and living at that high standard. This is the ordinary way of looking at the Sotapan. But in fact, what we're talking about is something real, because the student gets his mind cleaned out, then he gets it into first jhana, which means now the mind is really fit for work. And then he investigates the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths and really puts it to work and see how it works. And that's when he says, gotcha. Okay, this is not an intellectual exercise. This is, in fact, piano lessons and playing the piano and going to a recital and having everybody clap for you because you got it. Okay, this is part of the way of looking at getting that Dhamma. Is not because we can read it and understand it out of a book, but because we can see it in action. It's part of the music that we begun to play. So at that point, when we really fully understand what the teaching of the Buddha is, that's when we go on full alert for dukkha. We become dukkha hounds, and we're out there looking for it everywhere. Okay, and then eventually, though, if we caught it, fixed it over and over and over again, we soon get to the point that, hey, wait a minute, everything is friendly now. There's no dukkha left. Everything is good. All right, I've already caught it all. Crashed it up, sent it home, and whatever. So this is part also of that practice. And the security is I can do this for the beginner. But for the end of the game, it's just what? That's
what's there to do?
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
But that takes real wisdom.
It's really interesting saying that becoming looking for that dukkha and having that awareness, awareness of your internal landscape to see it emerge. It's so interesting. That's the investigation that comes from first jhana. So it's like first of all, it's like feel pleasure, feel internal joy that is wholesome.
Yes.
And now you have a benchmark. When that's not there, it's dukkha. It's such a it is like the pedagogy of it, the like logic of that structure. It's like, first of all, sit down, follow your breath, feel what it's like to be in this moment. Feels good, doesn't it? Like, feel that joy, get really good at soaking in that, and then now compare that experience to everything else and ask the question, why isn't everything else like that?
And why aren't my friends like that?
Yeah.
Because this group of friends are.
Yeah.
And they're worth getting to know.
Yeah.
And so that's really taking the refuge then in the Sangha. But as we say, it happens in stages and layers. Whatever layer the student is in, that there's a Sangha for him at that level. But that what we're seeking is the Sangha of nobles, because that's where this mind is going, is into that noble realm. And so once the mind is noble, now we can collect noble friends and be part of the noble Sangha that can be of enormous value. I have no clue about what such a noble Sangha could possibly accomplish in the world. I just know that something good's probably going to happen out of it. Because it doesn't take much money. What it takes is wisdom. There's already far too much money being thrown around unwisely. So it's even possible that with wisdom, you can collect some money and get some real power to do some good in the world. We've got plenty of opportunities. Who knows what's going to happen? Noble Sangha, I do know that the Thai society and the Thai government is very good for the Thai people, because it really, and those in charge really care. And that the last two coups that have happened was to take the government away from people who got elected that were going in the direction of Donald Trump. But this government had a coup and says, no, we're not going to let you do it here. And so the Thai, worldwide, all the democracies are pointing at Thailand and freaking out. But the Thai people, they're fine with it. Because we got good government hospitals, we got good school systems, and the people are paying attention. So the coronavirus is not an issue. The Thai baht is up. And so the people of Thailand are doing very well. And that the government at best could be called benign rather than malicious. And that takes some skill. And so in that regard, there has been some noble influence from the Sangha on these rulers and leaders to get them correctly lined up to help the people rather than help themselves. That's really magnificent. So if we had such a Sangha in the West, they may be able to influence the legislatures to stop being so selfish and start doing things for other people. We need such a noble Sangha in England too. And so getting it started is the key. And we don't want to start it with big-hearted people. We want to get it started with nobles, those who really know the Dhamma. And they've got it. And they know what's right. They're determined to live that way. And it's good to have good friends who are also determined that they know what is right. And they live that way. And they're determined to live that way. Now we got good friends. Okay, so this is the noble Sangha. That's the highest of all. And that's really where taking refuge in. And so that's it. That's the triple gem, the refuge at its most valuable level. So Sila and the triple gem. The Pali is Triratana. Triratana and Panchasilani. Sila.
The 5 precepts. Pancha's 5, isn't it? Yeah.
So this is the way that we would think about as taking refuge. And that when most people do it, it's actually just a ceremony. That they do take a little bit of refuge in the Dhamma. They also take a little bit of refuge in the Buddha, in the sense, look how everybody else puts him way, way high up. I guess I'll put him up there too. But the real advantage for anyone would be to take refuge in the Sangha. For instance,
Oh, hello? Are you there, Dhammarato?